to Level on Arc with me, John Martin. This is where we're looking at engineering, maths, science, current affairs, history, education. Whatever I feel like talking about, they'll probably end up with me griping about people on YouTube quite a lot. We are going to be talking a story of woe, of betrayal, of rail infrastructure going wrong and inconveniencing people a bit. Let's face it, you know what the video is about, you've seen the title. And this channel hasn't been going on long enough for me to have just got regular people who have no idea what's going on yet. But if you did see my previous video and had just subscribed to that, thank you very much. Tell your friends, subscribe and all that stuff. What we're talking about is the Northern Hub project, which is a rail project around, well, based around Northern England, but especially around Manchester, to improve rail traffic across Northern England. Some bits of the project went okay. Some electrification system between Manchester and Liverpool, that worked well. Electrification up to Bolton, not very well. It happened just very late. And other bits, and the bits we're talking about now, to improve the reliability of services going through Piccadilly Station in Manchester. Yeah. So we're going to go up there, and we're going to talk about it up there for a bit, and then I'll come back and give you a summation and some solutions.
What are the issues? The first is a number of trains that are crossing the station front of Piccadilly Station. A chunk of this comes down to the Trans-Pennine Express services. There are two main southern termini for that office operator in northwest England, Liverpool and Manchester Airport, with Piccadilly also being the terminus for some trains. The Liverpool services came in via the Warrington line, also known as the Cheshire Lines Committee route, through Oxford Road Station, through platforms 13 and 14 at Piccadilly, and then across all the other lines that serve the other 12 platforms at Piccadilly, and off to Newcastle and Scarborough and those places. The airport trains to Yorkshire and the North East came in from the airport, the Stow line, then into the bay platforms at Piccadilly. From there they would sit a while, then come back out the other way, either heading north towards Leeds or out through Stockport and then Sheffield. Both of these take up valuable bay platforms at the busy Piccadilly station. And with them, with the Northern Trans-Pennine services, these will head out past Ardwick Station, having crossed over all the other lines on the way into and out of Piccadilly Station. The other airport Trans-Pennine services, those that go to Scotland, the ones that actually don't transit the Pennines, go from the airport through platforms 13 and 14 and up through Bolton to the West Coast Main Line. The problem of the Liverpool trains crossing the station road was solved by rerouting Liverpool trains to run via the Chat Moss line into Manchester Victoria and then on towards Huddersfield. This sped up the travel time between the two cities, also paved the way for Liverpool services to Scotland via Manchester and Newcastle using an extra path. There is a downside. Prior to this change, it was only local services that went from Victoria to Liverpool, stopping along the way. If you wanted to go quickly from Liverpool to Manchester, you'd go to Oxford Road or Piccadilly. There you had the choice of the Trans-Pennine services or the East Midland trains coming from Nottingham and beyond. They both took the same Warrington route, stopping at Warrington Central. East Midlands trains stopped at Widnes, Trans-Pennines at Birchwood. Now you have to check where the next train is, figure out which side of the city you need to be. As Piccadilly is still the busiest interchange in Manchester, it reduces the convenience for people coming into Manchester from the south and east who need to change to get to Liverpool. It also reduces fast services from Warrington to Manchester and destinations beyond. The other big issue is the valuable bay platforms that reversing trains used up at Piccadilly. To solve this, it needed more than just rerouting. A whole new line would be built to finally link up Victoria and Piccadilly from the west side. This would be called the Ordsall Chord. Transpennine trains could run in from Huddersfield into Victoria, quick stop, around the Chord, stop at Oxford Road, Piccadilly, and then on to the airport. Because this is Manchester, a group of Chinese investors building unaffordable housing has to come into play. So instead of building this Chord through waste ground, they built it through the end of the old Liverpool Road station, also known as the Museum of Science and Industry, not only severing the world's oldest rail terminal from the mainline network, but cutting off one leg of the museum's internal railway track. But once, in 2017, the Ordsall Chord was opened, that would be fine. Yes? Well, no. As the Castlefield corridor, the line between Castlefield Junction, that's where the lines to Trafford and Salford split, and Piccadilly, was already the busiest double track in the country outside of London. Let's have a quick look at what goes down there. Transpennine run their Scottish services. In 2017, this went out via the Chat Moss, but once everything was electrified, it reverted to the Bolton route. Northern have their trains from Manchester Airport to Southport via Bolton. From Manchester Airport to Liverpool, there are some trains to Blackpool North, to Bower-in-Furness, to Windermere. There's a local stopping service from Oxford Road to Liverpool via Warrington Central, and local stopping services from Deansgate to Stoke and Macclesfield. East Midlands trains have a service, as mentioned earlier, linking Liverpool and Norwich via Nottingham. Transport for Wales run between Piccadilly and Llandudno or Holyhead via Chester. These can be extended to Manchester Airport. On top of this, it is a vital freight route connecting Trafford Park Freight Terminal with the West Coast Main Line. In addition, it's a diversionary route for the West Coast Main Line, allowing trains to run from Crewe or Staffordshire to Preston, avoiding Wigan, Warrington, or maybe even Crewe. The plan would have been not only for these Transpennine trains from Victoria, but other local services as well to be stuffed into the corridor on top of regular trains. While Oxford Road has 4 through platforms, the signalling only allows 2 trains to use those platforms at once, so hence you almost never get a train at platform 1. Even if this was fixed, everything has to go through the 2 outside platforms at Piccadilly and stop. This is a massive bottleneck. The solution to the lack of capacity was build more capacity. The line currently runs on a viaduct through a narrow gap between buildings. The plan was to make the entire corridor into 4 tracks. This was controversial, as the gaps between the existing line and surrounding buildings was already tight. There would have been some demolitions. Even some buildings that weren't going to be knocked down would be isolated as building works on the new viaduct and new platforms at Piccadilly took place. These weren't 2 separate projects. The Ordsall curve and the new viaduct went hand in hand. So obviously, the new viaduct project was mothballed. Not only was the issue that these Transpennine trains were being stuffed into an already busy line, but since they came in across the north, intertwining with paths run by many other operators and networks, they could often be delayed. Adding delayed trains to a busy corridor is a timetable disaster. All the rail junctions in Manchester area are flat, without flyovers or dive-unders. This means any train using a junction not only blocks its own line, but that of incoming trains too. This increases the knock-on effect of any delays. The solution is to terminate trains early and send them back. With Transpennine trains, when this was done at Piccadilly, this wasn't such a huge issue, as there were frequent trains from Manchester Airport to Piccadilly. They didn't take a long time, so if you, at the airport, found your train was cancelled, you basically jumped onto the first train into town and swapped platforms. There isn't, however, at Piccadilly, on the through platforms, enough room to hold a train. There is 1 carriage siding, and that's normally got a Wales-bound train waiting in it. So now these Transpennine trains are often terminated at Victoria. While it's a short tram ride from Piccadilly, it's a fair trek from Oxford Road. And getting to Victoria from the airport involves either nearly an hour by tram or a change of modes at Piccadilly. It's certainly not a minor inconvenience. Although having to do a dash from the airport to Piccadilly to catch a cancelled TransPennine train with 3 heavy bags, even this was a complete pain in the arse. When the Chord opened, there were issues with Northern trains that had a massive knock-on effect on punctuality in the region. There were delays with the Bolton electrification, delays elsewhere in the country with electrification that meant cascaded trains didn't arrive, and so there were also delays in manufacture of new trains for the operator. While both Northern and TransPennine were aware of these issues, they weren't allowed to change their timetables to compensate in advance because of the way the Network Rail has to organise a national timetable. True to form, Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham put the blame on Northern, despite things like trains actually not being built was not their fault. Something Burnham should know, as his fleet of trams were also delayed at a similar time. He proposed 2 solutions. The first was moving control of Manchester Railways under the office of the Mayor. Examples would be Liverpool and London. I plan to do a video on why this isn't a fair comparison, but given the Mayor's recent catastrophic failings with Greater Manchester Police giving him control of one of the nation's central railway hubs is worrying. Second would be to move freight paths away from the rush hour, which for Manchester seems sensible. It is frustrating to be waited on a crowded platform for a train when half a kilometre of containers rattle by. The question is, where would they go? Freight trains into Trafford Park come from places like Felixstowe, Southampton and London. Somewhere along the route they're going to be in somebody's rush hour. Moving everything to night time would stop vital maintenance being carried out on the railway and also trap locomotives out of use during the day, and there aren't enough passing loops on the network anymore. They were cut away with in the days of British Rail. With climate change, we need to be encouraging freight onto the rail, not away from it. And at this point, I'd actually pretty much finished my video, and then the Manchester Recovery Task Force announced they'd been looking at this. It's a government programme, so you can tell this is going to go well. Currently, say the average delay per train in Manchester is 3 minutes. And they have come up with 3 options. Option A moves the North Wales and Chester trains away from Piccadilly and the airport, instead running them through Stalybridge via Victoria. Stalybridge has a west-facing bay and Victoria doesn't. They also want to run more trains through Victoria Station. Trains from Buxton would be reduced to every hour off peak, and the current Ordsall Edge Southport train will be split, so the southern section stops in Piccadilly and the northern section only goes to Victoria. This option reduced average delays to 2.5 minutes per train, saving a whole 30 seconds per journey on average. Option B splits the Oxford Road Stopper train, so it only runs to Warrington Central. From there, a separate Liverpool to Warrington service would pick up local stations in Merseyside. Southport trains will now run to Stalybridge, and one of the airport-bound TransPennine trains will terminate at Victoria. This option saves 0.7 of a minute per train. Option C gets rid of the Manchester Airport to Sheffield/Cleethorpes TransPennine service, instead of replacing it with another Liverpool to Sheffield train. It also splits the Oxford Road stopping train at Warrington. Another change would be the North Wales and Chester train would run through the Knutsford line to Stockport and terminate at Piccadilly, losing its link to the airport. This saves 0.9 minutes per train. None of these actually solve the problems. They just try and minimise it by removing and moving services around the region. Probably inconveniences a load of people, and while it's a government task force, it's pretty certain it's the train companies who will get blamed for frustrated passengers. What are my issues with these options? Well, the obvious thing is we have a new piece of infrastructure that actually ended up reducing services and making rail travel in the region less convenient. Some things like splitting the Liverpool stopper doesn't really seem like a huge issue on its own. However, many of the stations on the line already suffering with much reduced service. More cuts on that line could be seen as a justification to cut services to the least frequented stations. I'm personally not sure how often the Buxton line service is particularly fair. There's some major towns on the route, and that road links them to Manchester is multi-single carriageway and often congested. My two big concerns are firstly removing direct access to Manchester Airport. Like it or loathe it, Manchester Airport is a major transport hub for the North West. It is the third busiest airport in the country. It's the busiest outside the London area, and with buses stopping right next to the station and tram link to Wythenshawe and Chorlton, it's a very convenient station for people in the south of Manchester and north east of Cheshire who prefer catching trains from there rather than central Manchester. Over the past decade and a bit, the number of platforms at the station has doubled. So it has a capacity which these options are looking to avoid using. The less convenient it is for people, especially families, to get to the airport with luggage, the more likely it is they'll use road transport, increasing pollution. My other big concern is that you're moving trains away from Piccadilly. It is still the main interchange for most people coming to Manchester. It is the terminus for West Coast mainline services to London, for cross-country trains to Birmingham and the South Coast, for trains to South Wales, for the south and east suburbs, and once HS2 comes along, Piccadilly will be the hub for that too. Sending passengers to Victoria will lead to huge amounts of congestion as passengers will try to get between the two stations, leaving Metrolink even more congested. Even worse could be passengers getting off at places like Salford Crescent and waiting for a Piccadilly train. The station is already overcrowded with a relatively narrow platform.
So what are my solutions? Well, the obvious one is build a viaduct. There are local pressures against it, and the government has pulled the finances for that, so that's going to be a while if that ever happens. Or you can move the Transpennine trains back to reverse in Piccadilly and live with the operational issues that incurs. Then you leave the Ordsall Chord as a lonely white elephant, a memorial to half-starved government projects, as it needs to be reminded to this government and future ones of what cost cutting does. We're currently seeing electrification projects shelved and for new lines not even considered for electric power. The East-West Varsity line from Oxford to Cambridge is one of these. Because of the existence of bi-mode trains, and these are ones that run on either battery or electric or diesel power for a stretch of the journey, as well as electricity. Ignoring these trains are not only more expensive than pure electric trains, able to hold less people, poor quality of journey, and are slower, but they're also much heavier, as they have to take the energy source with them rather than just take it from the wires. Heavier trains damage the track more. Non-wire lines mean that more diesel freight has to exist because you're limiting the lines electric trains can run on. And obviously if you've got diesel, it's going to be smoky and dirty as well. You're also reducing redundancy in the network. I'll cover all the means of bi-mode trains more in another video. But to sum up, the Northern Hub project has been a massive waste of money, an act of cultural vandalism that has basically made train travel worse. And without spending much more money or going back to square one, people in the North West will continue to suffer, as exemplified by the government's solutions, which basically remove convenience of rail travel from a lot of people. So if you have a solution, then please leave it in the comments. If you think this is something that to talk about, share, like, subscribe. Come back next time for a video on probably a completely different topic. We'll see. So until the next time, I've been John Martin.